Yep.
Okay. I'd like to go ahead and call this meeting to order. And for everyone who can, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. And Mr. Strout, will you lead us in the pledge?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Great, thank you. With that, the roll call, Brittany?
Sure. Chair Joseph Diver.
Here.
Mark Strout.
Here.
Robert Bishop.
Here.
John Boyle.
Here.
Dan Esco.
Here.
And our town manager, Thomas Hutchison.
Here.
Great, thank you, Brittany. First thing on the agenda is the minutes from November 22nd, 2021. Can I have a motion?
Sure. I make a motion to accept the minutes from November 22nd, 2021 as presented.
Second.
Oh, motion and second, any discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote.
I done mute, sorry. Joe Diver.
Yes.
Mark Strout.
Yes.
Robert Bishop.
Yes.
John Boyle.
Yes.
Dan Esco.
Yes.
Great, thank you. Next is a public address to the board. This is a time when the public may address the board on any item listed on the meeting agenda or on any issue or matter of the town. If you intend on addressing the board at this time, we ask that you do the following. Please identify yourself by name, address, or the company institution you represent. The public address to the board segment will last no longer than 30 minutes. Please make your comments concise and try not to repeat statements made by others. Please address your comments to the board chair. Discussion or debate on any issue may not take place at this time. The chair or the designee may answer questions on procedural matters. Please be cordial and respectful of others. If anyone wishes to be recognized when the board discusses an agenda item, please make the request at this time. The board chair may grant this request, address comments to the board chair, and be concise. Is there anyone?
Joe,
Mr. Hall, yes.
hi. Richard Hall, 164 Green Ridge Drive. Can I be recognized for 9 and 10? when it comes up?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. Anyone else in the audience? Not seeing any hands raised or any others? Okay. Appointment ratifications, Mr. Hutchinson.
Yes. First, I'm pleased to present for your ratification Ed Giro as the Board of Health representative to the Solid Waste and Recycling Committee, effective January 25th, 2022 through the end of the fiscal year, June 30th. Ed was very kind to say that he would be willing to be appointed to this committee. As you know, the way it is set up, we do have a Board of Health representative, and Ed has agreed to that position.
Thank you. Is there a motion to accept that appointment?
Make a motion to accept Ed Giro to the Board of Health Representative Solid Waste Management and Recycling Committee effective January 25th, 2022 through June 30th, 2022.
Second.
Motion and second, any discussion?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Boyle.
I'd just like to point out that Ed Giro is a former town employee. And for the latter part of his career with the town, he worked and managed the transfer station. He has a wealth of knowledge about transfer stations and their operation and value to the community. So, Ed, welcome aboard.
Excellent, thank you, Mr. Boyle. Great. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Sure. Joe Diver.
Yes.
Mark Strout.
Yes.
Robert Bishop.
Yes.
John Boyle.
Yes.
Dan Esco.
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you, Ed. And thank you, Mr. Boyle, for those great comments. Very helpful. Next one, Mr. Hutchinson.
Yes, I'm very pleased to say that my administrative assistant, Alyssa Machino, who you all know very well, has agreed to serve on the Dalton Cultural Council. We were surprised to find that it's not necessary to be a Dalton resident to serve, and she was asked to be on after doing some of the organizing work for the committee, and so I'm pleased to present her appointment for ratification as well. Again, effective January 25th through June 30th.
Fantastic. Could I have a motion?
Ratification as well.
Motion?
Make a motion to appoint Alicia Messino to the Dalton Cultural Council effective January 25th, 2022 through June 30th, 2022.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? Here, just a quick comment, Alyssa. Just thank you for putting your name forward and doing this. This is you've been doing great work ever since your arrival, and thank you for that excellent work and that extra effort here. So, so thank you.
Thank
With
you.
that, roll call vote. If there's no further discussion.
Joseph Diver,
Yes.
Mark Strout,
Yes.
R. Bishop,
Yes.
John Boyle,
Yes.
Dan Esco.
Yes.
Thank you all, and thank you, Alyssa. Fantastic.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is the discussion regarding police, civil service, and possible town meeting vote. Mr. Hutchinson, do you want to kick us off here, and then we can introduce the chief and have that discussion?
Sure. First, I'd like to say that this is actually just a discussion, looking at some of the issues involved and getting a bit of a presentation from our chief of police in order to better understand the issues. I believe we in Pittsfield may be the last two municipalities in Berkshire County to be part of the civil service system. And it has, in my understanding, become a detriment to our recruiting new officers. So Chief Strout has come up with some excellent background material. I think you got some as part of this meeting's packet, and she's here to present the issue. Again, this is more for information and discussion. We're actually not ready to take a vote on this going to town meeting yet, but I hope that we will be soon.
Thank you so much. So first I will start off by saying that Dalton Police Department joined civil service in 1967 by the way of a town vote, which is the same way that we would have to leave civil service. The issue we're having with civil service right now is that 85% plus of the candidates are east of Worcester. So when we get a list, the bulk of our candidates now are from outside of our area. And for example, right now we are hiring a patrolman, and we, after a little bit of a debacle with civil service, sending out the wrong list and forgetting to send a list, and then finally sending out our correct list, we've had right now 7 candidates come in and sign our list. One was from Dalton, and without getting into specifics, very community involved, veteran, and there's 21 people above him on the list. If 21 people come in, we can't even interview that person. If any of 3 of those people above him come in, we can't interview him. The other folks are from Foxborough, Walpole, Jamaica Plains, Wales, Boston. We received 7 phone calls today. 1 candidate was from Westfield. The other 6 were just outside of Boston. What we're seeing happening, and when I say we, I mean multiple police departments, is that candidates come out. The full-time academy is a very coveted thing to get. It makes you full-time certified for the state, and then you're very valuable to other agencies. So they're coming out anywhere they can get a job, and they're getting that full-time academy certification, and then they very quickly leave and go back to wherever they came from and get jobs out there. And what I did send to Mr. Hutchison today was the hiring costs of how much it costs. And it's about $45,000 for us to invest in a police officer between the cost of medical psych, PAT, which is the physical fitness test, and the Cooper, which is another physical fitness test that they have to take. And then their equipment, and then we pay them their salary while they're in the academy. So, and then they have to participate in a 15-week field training program, and that's at the very bare minimum is 15 weeks. If they have any difficulties with any training, they have to extend that. So it's substantial cost and investment. The other form I did give you is a promissory note. It's just an idea that I came up with. I know Pittsfield Police Department uses one to help protect the town a little bit financially, because if we have to, that promissory note basically makes them promise they're going to stay 5 years from graduation, or they have to repay the costs. So if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them instead of taking up all your time by talking.
So leaving the civil service and how does that help with recruitment? I understand, but I think I'm more or less asking the question for the general public. But yeah.
Thank you. So right now, our recruitment efforts, I would prefer to focus on local candidates, people with community ties closer to us. And as I told you earlier, we don't have that -1 right now. And that's if nobody else comes in and bumps that person from that spot. And they have till Friday. So recruitment, we could focus on local area recruitment. We could utilize social media. There's a lot of different ways we can recruit. There's many actually people on the civil service list that we can't get to that are local people with good ties, good people that we would love to give a chance to have an interview here. And they're too low. They're much lower than these other people from outside of our area. We can't get to them because of civil service rules. So we would focus our recruitment on our local area as opposed to a statewide list.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board?
What are the potential drawbacks to exiting civil service?
So Dan, I kid you not, I knew you were going to ask that. And I actually did a pro and con list. So the pros for civil service is it's a guaranteed list of candidates. It's relatively easy. We put in a requisition to civil servants, say, hey, we need to fill a patrolman's position. And then they send out the notification list. And I will tell you, there was a lot of hiccups with this one. Initially, they forgot to send our list out. So we lost 6 days on that. And we only found out they forgot to send it because one of our candidates that we know didn't get notice. And I reached out and asked if he didn't get a notice, how do I know anyone else did? And a couple hours later, we got the phone call that they forgot to send the list. And then they sent the wrong list and they had to rescind a list. So it's been a very difficult process. They're very understaffed. And just, we were at a meeting, we had to participate in a survey, and 60 to 70% of civil service police departments right now are leaving civil service. So and that's through Mass Chiefs. They initiated the survey. We all participated if we were thinking about leaving or in the process of leaving, and 60 to 70% are leaving because it's just too difficult to hire. They're not giving us local lists to choose from. And, so the cons of civil service, like I said, most candidates live outside of east of Worcester. And again, they're taking positions and then leaving. And, the cost of hiring is a lot. And if they're not going to stay here, and like I said, just tonight, I got an email asking me if there was a contract in place and how long he'd have to stay here. That's not really a great feeling when you ask someone about a position. Well, how long do I have to stay? So, the current employees right now, anyone who's been hired through civil service would remain civil service for the rest of their career. So they get, I guess you would call it grandfathered in. So they stay. Without getting specifically into union because they're negotiating with the town, they have voiced support for this because they know the difficulties we face. We're 200-300 people down on a list before we can even get enough candidates to interview. So it's a very large time constraint for us. So when we could just focus our recruitment on Berkshire County, that's really where we need to be. So I hope that's helpful.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Any other questions from the board?
I'll just note that There has been some talk of trying to get this done before the annual town meeting. Right now, we're having to cover that sergeant shift with existing employees, which is putting a strain on the department. And it would be possible to do that, but there are timelines that we need to consider from the town clerk's point of view. And by the time we're ready to do it, it might not make as much sense as it might seem now. But there is always the possibility of a special town meeting. It would require work that the town clerk's office had not anticipated for this year.
We'll certainly follow your lead on that with, as you collaborate with the chief and with our town clerk and what's best process there. So we can cross that bridge when we get there for sure. But that leads to another question, just procedurally, this would have to be a vote at town meeting for the voters to determine we're going to leave civil service and go in this different direction. Basically rescinding that 1968 vote, right?
So
Yes.
Joe, and to add to that, and something I had given Tom earlier was civil service was created to make sure people were hired fairly and you weren't hiring people outside, a fair process. And that was prior to police departments having uniform policy and procedure. And now we have these uniform policy and procedures. And I've already acquired accredited policies from a couple different departments that cover hiring. And we would stick pretty close to the civil service guidelines because I think they're good guidelines. They're just not beneficial to us locally. So we would stick close to that, and same with promotional. They're all policies that you follow, and it really safeguards your department from any unfair or biased hiring.
Great, thank you. Mr. Boyle.
Yeah, two quick things. No, I forgot what I was sitting there thinking. If it gets to a town meeting and requires action, does anyone know if it would pass by, a rescission would pass by a simple majority or 2/3? I guess nobody knows. That's all right.
Yeah, it would be whatever the original vote was.
Right,
And I
but nobody
don't-
knows what it is. It's understandable. Okay, the second question is, or second observation is, I think we'd have to have a strong support from the union before we went forward with this. I'm not sure if the chief spoke of their position or if they have a position or is under consideration with the union or what.
Yes, it is currently under consideration.
I think that'd be a vital factor in going forward with this.
So Mr. Boyle, what I said a couple of minutes ago was that the union has told me they are very much in support of this, but they are negotiating with the town for some things with that. But yes, they are all very much in support of this. It does not help them. We're covering 80 hours a week with overtime right now because we cannot hire. So, and it's such a slow process. So yes, they are very much in support. I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it if they weren't.
No, but it's good to get that out there. All right.
No, I appreciate that. Yeah,
Thank
I respect them very much.
Any additional questions from the board?
No?
Does any members of the board or Chief Strout have any reason to believe, members of town would be opposed to this change? Any reasons you can think of? Kind of get ahead of that.
I can't think of any as you kind of think through the issue and you see the bouncing ball of the police reform and the post commission and the direction that they're headed in some of their new regulations and the part-time officers need full-time training. So putting this, it's really driving a new recruitment strategy for the police department at the end of the day. It becomes a tool in the tool belt to then, be able to go in that new direction. So I can't see folks opposing this. And I think this is kind of the first step in educating the community about what changes are coming down the pipeline under the chief's leadership and what's going on at the state level.
And I'm hopeful that the town would prefer to have local candidates that have a good sense of their community and know their community, and that's really where we're trying to stay is people that want to be here, want to be part of what we're doing.
Yeah, I have a question for you.
Sure.
Your little agreement pack, now would that be part of the town vote, or we just do that as, as you can just do that? I kind of like that a lot.
So I want to start implementing it on this next new hire because I think it's just going to protect the town a lot more. If we can get a 5-year contract out of someone, I mean, there's cons to that, because if you're forcing someone to stay where they don't want to be, you don't necessarily get great work performance out of them. But I think what that will do is hopefully shy away people who don't truly want to work here and know that they have to give a 5-year commitment or pay back the entire salary and all the equipment cost, which is pretty substantial. So it's something that we came up with, and I gave to you guys today. Just take a look at. We can implement it as long as Mr. Hutchison's on board with that and you guys are on board with that. I think we should implement it for this next hire.
Yeah, I took a look at it, and Ms. Hutchinson, I'll leave it up to you for any type of legal review or anything else of that nature and guidance on that. I like the idea. I just want to make sure we're in the guardrails of what we need to do there from labor rules and regs.
Go,
Mr. Boyle.
Yes. Again, I think the union's position is paramount in an issue of employment, and definitely we should consider their recommendations. Also, I think it's a good idea. Several people over the years have said to me, why don't you have because there's such a turnover of officers in the department in the last 4 or 5 years, why doesn't the town have a binder or a mandatory time you have to serve? And I said, we simply don't. And I don't know why. Maybe civil service prevents that. I didn't know. But I think it's a good idea to, maybe the term I think is mentioned is 5 years. Maybe that could be reduced or negotiated. But overall, I think a binder for the investment the town has put in a candidate for police, asking for them to be part of their employment contract, a stated time frame, is not unreasonable.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, thank you, Chief, for bringing this to the discussion on the table tonight, and we look forward to the next steps and follow the lead of yourself, Mr. Hutchinson, on what the next appropriate steps are in this. But so far, it looks like the board is understanding and supportive of this direction, and we'll see where it continues to evolve to. So.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Going to number 8, the Board of Health update.
Yes, Agnes is here to report for the Board of Health. I'll note that outgoing health agent Jane Smith is also on the call. She'll be covering item number 9 for the Waste Management and Recycling Committee. So Agnes, I understand you might want to share the screen.
Correct.
If you go down to the green item on the bottom and click that, you'll see whatever's on.
Like the contractor is responsible for the staffing. So if we have a staffing shortage, it's not our problem. It's the town's, it's the contractor's problem. They assume the risk for the municipal solid waste tipping fees. So if it costs a lot more to get rid of our solid waste, then they're assuming that liability. The contractor assumes the risk for the equipment ownership, like the maintenance and functionality of that equipment. And, the other positive about the existing system is that the town has little day-to-day worry about, selling stickers and collecting fees and setting policies. So that's the existing program. There are some negatives to that as well. So, first and foremost is, it's a for-profit venture, right? I mean, anyone who's in business is in it for to make money. If you aren't a business that's making money, then you're not a business for very long. Also, the town can't really explore other ways to reduce waste because of the contract. It's very specific of people have to have stickers to do this. They have to have the bags to do that. But by having someone who's from Casella man the station, it limits our ability to add other like things like swap shops and other waste reduction at our transfer station. The other issue is that right now the existing sticker fee and the bag fees assume all of the liability for worst case scenario for recycling, right? So the recycling market actually has gotten quite better, and the town really hasn't fully benefited from that, or I should say the users haven't fully benefited from that because their sticker price reflects worst case scenario, even though we're nowhere near to worst case scenario. Answering questions is hard. We have a wonderful transfer station attendant right now. And if someone drives there and asks Brian a question, he's so helpful. But, a lot of times people want those answers to the specific questions before they get in their car and actually drive there. We've seen that, the town just wasn't as aware of like some of the safety issues and the condition issues of the transfer station, again, because we're not operating it. And then last, there's been a lot of support for a recycling only sticker. It would be a lower cost sticker that would allow residents who, for instance, get solid waste pickup from a private entity to be able to still recycle, even if their hauler does not provide recycling. So having us, the town, run the transfer station isn't a novel idea at all. Most Western Mass communities operate their own transfer station. Any town in Berkshire County that I've talked to runs their own transfer station. Also, looking through the notes, this was a suggestion from the Dalton Green Committee in 2019 when a lot of changes were made that I had kind of spoken about earlier, where, there were some acquisitions and some changes in ownership, and we were looking at different contracts. We have a solid waste consultant, so that's Weston and Sampson, and I'll go over who they are in a second. But this was recommended as probably the best way to move forward from our consultant, and through our conversations at the Waste Management and Recycling Committee meeting, where all of this was kind of laid out, they agreed that also this would be the best way for the town to look at going. So back to what we talked about, in 2019, the Dalton Green Committee really looked hard at this. They worked really hard at the solid waste and transfer station contract. And, so this was the document that I saw and found in our files, but, so I pulled out 2 points. One was, that they recommended that we manage the transfer station because it would increase the pricing and operations, and instead put out a request for proposals for materials transport only. So those were the recommendations from the Green Committee. The consultant, Weston and Sampson, who are they? Tom and worked to get a Massachusetts Best Practices grant. And what the point of that was to hire a consultant to help us go through this request for proposal process. So that's finding out what the town wants to do and create a request for proposal that encompasses what the town has decided that they want to do. They were chosen because they've assisted other communities. And actually I had contacted the best practices grant coordinator, and they put me directly in touch with Weston and Sampson. Michael Scapione has some good press in other towns as well. So, and then of course the Dalton Waste Management and Recycling Committee. And I had already gone over their recommendation that we go in this direction. So how to move forward? The two priorities that I really considered were like fiscally responsible and environmentally responsible. And so with the fiscal, under the current contract, Dalton pays for, they pay for the solid waste, like all of the town buildings is in the current contracts. But, we pay for the porta potty at the transfer station, rodent control, maintenance of the physical facility, so that's the repairs and anything that like the plowing and whatnot. So those items are not included in what we're going to talk about today, right? Because it's going to be the same no matter who is managing the transfer station. But what we are going to talk about is the operation, which is paid using the sticker fees and bags from the users. So right now, this year, for a family to get a facility use sticker, so that's if they want to recycle or drop off their solid waste or both, they pay $119.19 to get their sticker that allows them to kind of go up into that area at the transfer station. And then they have a pay-as-you-throw system. So if you have a 15-gallon bag, which is about the size of your kitchen bag, they have to buy a special bag. It's $3.42. If you want a bigger bag, it's $4.15. And then if you want to get rid of any of your, couches, chairs, white goods, then you would pay extra. But so if you are a family that just bought one sticker and one small bag a week, it's almost $300 for that family. And honestly, that's a lot higher than what other communities are paying. So here we go. The big thing about fiscally responsible is where the numbers tell us, right? So the first glance on this, for the costs, you take your tonnages, you take your hauling, you take into consideration your attendant and salary and in your equipment, that gives you your costs. Well, we know all of those things except for really two price points. One is the leasing equipment, and we're working on getting that information right now. We're working on what it's going to lease, what it would be to buy new equipment. And so we're in active engagement with to find out what those numbers are. And the other piece in the cost that we don't have for you right now is the recycling handling fee from the MRF. And you're like, well, if you have 98.24 a ton and it's 265 tons, well, wouldn't you know that number? Well, actually, no, you don't, because the handling fee might be a cost and it might be an income. So if you look over on the incomes, here it is, the recycling, same thing. And I'm going to go over that in our next slide. But when you look at the costs, so let's say 135,000, probably 140 by the time we get the leasing equipment. If we look at what we know that we're getting for income, we're getting $160,253. That's a conservative estimate. If I always was conservative with these numbers, I based it on the last 2 years, and I always erred on the side of caution. That number does not include what people pay to drop off their couches and their refrigerators. We're still waiting for that information from Casella. We know how much the total tons was for this year, but we don't know what they received in actual revenue from that. Scrap metal, every month, every 5 weeks, they were pulling scrap metal out of there. We don't know what the income was for that. And then the recycling is the most complicated part of that. And it's because our contract with the Springfield MRF, sorry about that, is based off of a handling fee, and then you take out the value of the recycling, right? So I put an example to help people understand that. So if there's 10 tons of recycling and that is worth $50 a ton, you take that off of the handling fee. And so if it was only $50 a ton, then we would be paying the MRF. We wouldn't be paying them the $980.24. We'd be paying them $480.24. What we've seen since June is that actually the market value is higher than the handling fee. So if the market value is higher than the handling fee, well, suddenly we've been getting checks from the Springfield MRF. And you can see on this next slide, this goes back to July of 2020. You can see that starting in June, we started getting checks every month written to the town for our recycling. But even before then, our costs were never as high as the handling fee at that moment. And so that's why recycling is kind of a wild card. But I will tell you that the MRF has made a lot of improvements in their equipment, so they're able to pull out the most valuable material. And we've been receiving money since June of 2021, and the markets are continuing to strengthen. So if you look down December 21, you can see that there was a lull in the market values. Like, this is not a great time of year for recycling, but in any case, that is the wild card number. So, so going back to, this is the exact same slide that you saw earlier, you know, I think that I had calculated that the recycling handling fee, you know, was like $25,000 or something. But so even if you added $25,000 to this, it still would result in a net zero, even with the unknown costs and income, which we will be getting shortly. It's just, you know, it didn't come before we put this together today. So, you know, in my mind, I feel like the priority, the fiscally responsible, that's a check. The second priority is environmentally responsible. You know, and for us to be running our own recycling facility really allows for flexibility to pursue other options for from people. So like we're talking about, you know, having a recycling only sticker. We can't do that under our current contract. You know, having someone to watch over a swap shop and a textile bin, electronics, you know, a place for people to put their household hazardous waste ongoing throughout the year, or even a composting facility isn't possible with our current, the way that our current contract is scheduled. And what we're working with the consultant is to look at what layout for the transfer station would allow for the most opportunity for residents to reduce their waste, and that would reduce the amount that goes in those bags and goes into the municipal solid waste. So check, right? So I feel like there's a good case to be made on that, on the environmentally responsible, which also is to be responsive to the needs of our community. So what are the next steps? You know, we're talking about it tonight. It would be great for the select board to weigh in on this topic. We have a request for proposal. We've seen the first draft. We're making some adjustments, but you know, it would be great to find out where the select board felt about this particular topic. Then, you know, that will allow the town manager and the recycling consultants to, you know, continue to gather information and kind of form what's going to go on that request for proposal. Will allow them to set the budget of the transfer station to reflect what the town wants, and then really get that that draft request for proposal finally approved and out for bid. This, I feel like Dalton is ready for this. There's been a lot of conversation around it. Just in my 2 years here, it has been like the topic of conversation. There's been a lot of work, and I really look forward to talking to you about this, and hopefully see Dalton go to a future where, you know, you have the most options for your.
How are we going to educate people in the town to take out their recycling? And if the haulers don't have the ability to pick that up separately, to bring it to the transfer station? I think this is a great idea. But that, I mean, that's the big thing, is rather than throwing in the garbage, you've got to persuade them to bring it to the transfer station.
That's a great question, Richard. So just to back up a little bit, the Board of Health actually has a regulation that we are currently not enforcing that requires haulers to provide either recycling, making sure that their customers recycle, okay? But with the staffing shortages and logistically, we're just not set up. They don't have a place to dump it yet. And so one of the things that was floated is if we had a recycling only option where, let's say residents, what town was it? I think it was Egremont that I asked if they had a recycling only sticker, and I think it was $45, right? So it was $45 for someone to come and drop off the recycling. We've heard from residents that they want that. And we have the mechanism to require the haulers to educate, to disperse the educational materials. And we have been working really closely with haulers who have been actually great partners to helping us think this through. It's just that the town was crossing a line where we were really interfering with the way that they were able to make their numbers work. But so that is a great question. One of the things that we are putting into and looking at putting into the next fiscal year budget is to make sure that we have someone on staff that's actively doing education. And we've actually hired a consultant, or in the process of hiring a separate consultant to work on that educational piece. But that's a great question, Richard.
Thank you, Jane.
You're very welcome.
And I just want to pause for a moment because there's been some new members of the public that have joined. I just want to kind of go back. I know that some members of the audience may want to ask questions on this topic. So just pause and see if anybody has a raise their hand or. Okay. Hearing none. Okay, I'll turn it to the board now. Yep, turn it to the board now. Go ahead, Mr. Boyle.
Okay. I have more than a question. There's a few things I'd like to say. One, I'm very skeptical of this proposal for a lot of reasons. But the first thing I would like to say is there is a covenant. It's not legal. It's not bound in iron. It's not a town bylaw, but it's stipulated that any transfer station or the transfer station will be solely funded by fees from its participants. So I don't see that happening with these numbers. There's no way you're not going to be spending taxpayer dollars on this transfer station proposal. Now we'll come to the numbers later on. And when you do that, and this is the reason there's a covenant, you are subsidizing the participants in the town transfer station to the expense of the people, folks that have their recyclables and trash picked up door to door. And let me tell you what that number is. It's probably the average for recyclables and trash is probably $60 a month or $700 a month, opposed to $300 as Jane pointed out, which is very, very accurate figure, probably $300 a sticker in a bag every week, probably comes to $350. Okay, very accurate. Now, 2 weeks ago when this proposal was brought up or floated, I asked for a top to bottom cost analysis. Well, evidently that was ignored. And we just got some random numbers here, but we'll just deal with what we have. We have a potential income of $160,000. Now, these are all, by the town manager's own admission, assumptive figures, not facts. We have $160,000, the prevailing wage, which is $54 an hour. So this figure will radically change, the 8750. Okay, the recycling fee. Okay, now down to the salary for the attendant. It's pegged at $40,000 plus $20,000 benefits. I contend that $20,000 is not nearly an accurate figure of the benefits a full-time town employee would receive. But anyway, stick with the 60. Now, if you have an attendant over there, is a town employee, and he's entitled to the full benefit package, there will be many days where he will be out sick, he'll be on vacation, anything else that comes under the benefit package. He will have to be replaced that day by another attendant, a worker at the town highway department. So that will cause disruptions to Mr. Hall's highway operation, interruption of service, and what the man was originally hired or tasked for. So I figure at least it take 1.5 employees to man that thing. In other words, the cost of not 60,000, but 90,000. Another inaccurate cost. But let's get to the big kahuna here. Leasing equipment is left blank because when you propose this, you didn't know it and you still don't. That could be anywhere from 100 to 150,000. So that throws you're making money on this right down the drain, and it's going to require a subsidy by the taxpayers of, I don't know, easily $150,000. Jane is shaking your head. Where am I wrong?
Well, big points for the town to consider. And that's why we're having this conversation, because the town has to move forward one way or the other. Okay.
No, wait a minute.
Well, no, but just if you don't mind, just let me.
Mr. Boyle, let Jane
Okay.
finish it, respond to your question, please. Go ahead, Jane.
So as far as the leasing of equipment, we have started those conversations, and I think if we were to purchase the equipment, right, that would be, I think that what you're saying is that would be more of a cost. I mean, if we're leasing the equipment, we're not going to be paying $150,000 a year to lease equipment. That's way outside of what would be reasonable for that, especially if we use the used equipment. I will tell you that the numbers that I used were based off of the last 2 years average, and I erred on the side of being more expensive consistently.
Okay, great. That figure, so that's an unknown figure. Until we actually know that figure and the other figures you mentioned, we shouldn't even be, this has to be considered a preliminary discussion.
That's exactly what it is.
Definitely need to know that figure right there. Now.
Yeah, Mr. Boyle, let me just pause for a moment. This is a preliminary discussion. Certainly the rest of the financial analysis.
All right.
And
I just want to make that clear, Joe, okay?
As the report has also indicated, Casella has not been forthcoming with some of the numbers that we need. So we're having those conversations as well.
May I continue?
Hold on for 1 second. Mr. Hutchinson?
Yes, I would actually prefer to buy the equipment either that's existing there, because I think it would be pretty inexpensive. I generally don't like lease agreements because it puts the town on the hook for especially in something like a container, where I think it just makes much more sense to have the town buy that.
And you'll be able to buy that through capital planning, right, Ms. Hutchinson? And then.
Oh, yes. Yeah. And I think we're not saying that all of the capital expenses that we would like to put into it, including new sheds and that sort of thing, are going to be paid for by this budget. But I look at it as more of a what kind of service can we provide to the residents? And I think if we do offer a recycling only sticker, we offer a swap shop, which can be accessed with a recycling sticker because it's its own kind of recycling, and fiber recycling, shoes, electronics. I think those sorts of things will bring in more money for the town, especially the metal recycling. You'll notice we didn't put in any money for scrap metal, and that what is it, 360 tons a year, Jane, or 300 tons a year. So it's a larger number than I would have thought. We did not put in any.
No, we didn't put it in there. Yeah, we're still waiting for that information.
So this is an extremely conservative budget based on what we know. A lot of it is based on market prices, and we can never know those. I think the thing to go forward with, and I would urge the board to make a decision if it feels if it's ready to go ahead with this RFP. We're in the midst of talking with Casella and talking about how the operation might move forward. We are not going to get all of the information we need. If you want all that information, we can't get some of it because it exists in future markets. And I don't believe we're ever going to get, complete information in the sense that some might want it. But I would urge a direction to go in so that we can continue these conversations. Otherwise, we'll be left negotiating a contract in which we also don't know what kind of finances the operation has, and we won't be able to offer the options that you've heard.
Mr. Chairman, may I continue?
Oh, hold on, Mr. Stroop.
Yeah, I just have a quick question. You said there's numerous towns that do this. Do we have, are they working in the positive here? Are they making money from this?
That is a great question. And that is some information that I can get back to you on. I don't actually know the answer to that. I mean, I know that here in Sheffield, they build their budget and our sticker price accompanies, encompasses what the cost is to run the transfer station. But if you're wondering if they have any money from the town budget that goes into them, I'm not aware one way or the other. But, like for instance, in Sheffield with your sticker price, you end up getting three sheets of paper. You can bring in 3 bulky items. So the other towns around us are getting a lot more services for their residents than Dalton is, which is essentially a pay to play.
Mr. Boyle?
Yes, thank you for allowing me to continue, Mr. Chairman. As any good accountant knows, there are always hidden costs that fail to come to the surface and being considered for any financial endeavor. And I would just like to mention a few of these costs that have not been mentioned or considered in this financial presentation tonight. One, if we own our own equipment, it's going to require maintenance and parts and expertise to repair this machinery. Another figure, I just put down $5,000 would be the minimum. We're going to have to see an increase in our workmen's compensation budget. The 2 new employees working at a somewhat iffy occupation. General liability insurance is going to go up, probably at least $1,000. These employees that are working in the highway are now going to be working in the transfer station will have to be financially bonded because they're going to be handling money. There's a wealth of paperwork that's done in in conjunction with the transfer station that is handled by Casella in their home office. A lot of paperwork. This will have to be done by another clerk in town, probably a Mr. Hall's clerk. Her hours will have to be extended because it's a serious workload. Probably adding, anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000 cost to the town.
Mr. Boyle, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Would you agree that if we don't do an RFP to bring it into town ownership, our only option is we basically end up with one contract proposal from Casella, and we have nothing to compare it to. So at least going through the RFP process of owning it by the town and operating it by the town, because it's an option to turn left.
Mr. Chairman, I totally agree. We should do the RFP proposal. We probably should have done it a long time ago.
I think that's the ask.
Out there and make comparisons.
I think that's the ask that they have on the table tonight is to approve the RFP direction for operating.
I'll be quick, but can I continue?
I'm not sure what the purpose is because there's more analysis to it. So if there's a.
Well, I just want to point out a few more expenses that aren't covered.
Well, I'm sure the committee is going to go through that whole process and bring all that data back to us.
They're going to all the things I just mentioned. They've already.
We'll leave it up to a town manager through the RFP process.
But can I continue for one more minute?
1 more minute, and then we have to move on.
Okay, thank you. Now, we're going to now make the director of the highway department, Mr. Hall, manager of the transfer station, be his responsibility. First of all, this guy is already overburdened with things the town select board have dumped on him. Now, we're going to expand his duties. Let's stop,
Mr. Boyle. You just suggested the select board dumped a lot of work on Mr. Hall, which is not the fact. So let's move
Yeah, it
on.
is.
So
It is a fact.
I would like to ask for a motion about the RFP. If there's a motion to approve the
Wait,
RFP to
Joe.
move forward.
I just got two more things. Can I just mention these things?
No, Mr. Boyle, we're done.
Oh, I knew it'd come to this. I predicted it. I would be shut off by you. Thanks.
Yep.
I'm happy to receive all your points here and cover them with the committee.
Okay, so there's a
I
motion
didn't have
to,
a chance to give all my points.
I'm happy to receive them at any time.
Yeah, right.
so there's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion?
Yeah. I know this is a motion to approve the RFP process, but I do want more information, and I do want the information, the data that Mr. Boyle is talking about to help us in the ultimate decision, please.
Yeah, of course.
Thank
Of
you.
course. Yep. I think there's more
I agree.
analysis.
There's information missing that could leave the town on the hook for more than what's being presented tonight.
Yeah, there's more analysis, absolutely, to his points. That's absolutely. And then going through even to the finance committee for their recommendation as well. So we're making the right
Very
investment
well.
decision.
Okay, thank you.
Can I speak to the motion?
Go ahead, Mr. Boyle.
Yeah, just one quick thing. These employees will be working on Saturday, which is not the regular work week, which is not included in the union contract, which they'll be union members when they join the highway department. Now, town manager is going to have to negotiate probably premium pay for Saturdays. You got that? Can you discuss that at your meeting? Okay. All right. With that, I'm done for the evening. Thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion? Motion, second, roll call vote.
Yes. Joseph Diver,
Yes.
Mark Strout,
Yes.
Robert Bishop,
Yeah.
John Boyle,
No.
Dan Isco.
Yes.
Motion carries. Jane, again, thank you for, just want to pause and say thank you for a great detailed presentation. And I'm sure there's been a lot of other people that have been engaged in the detail around that presentation. So thank you to everybody who had input in that. And I know this is your last meeting with us here in Dalton, so we are going to miss you. So I also want to pause and thank you for all your efforts through this whole couple of years in the COVID crisis and everything else. So nice round of applause there. If we could be together and have a big party soon enough, let's do that. But wish you all the greatest success. The next role is down in Sheffield. Is that, do I have that
Southern
correct?
Berkshire Public Health Collaborative.
Okay, awesome. They got a rock star. So again, thank you.
You're welcome.
And Agnes, thank you for picking up the lead there on the Board of Health. And thank you so much, Jane. We're gonna miss you.
Thank you. It's been a real pleasure to work with the town of Dalton.
Thanks, Jane.
Thank you, Jane.
Thank you, Jane.
Thank you, Jane.
You're welcome.
Good to see you,
With
Jane.
that, moving to.
Thank you,
the-
Jane.
Keep it going. Keep it going. Yeah. Jane,
You guys will be missed.
yeah. Anything we do to help you with your future success, just reach out. Don't hesitate. So happy to do so. With that, let's go into the fun world of budgets. Mr. Hutchinson.
Yes, and I will note that Sandra is on as well. She was the one who prepared these budgets. We have 6 because we're not prepared to present any budgets with salaries in them yet, pending the discussion later on in the agenda, the next item on the agenda. These are budgets which all currently are proposed to be level funded. I'll say that. So the whole group of them is proposed for level funding. The reserve fund, again, at $65,000. And legal counsel, again, at $60,000. The town engineer, again at $20,000. The Historical Commission at $4,500. The Memorial Day Committee at $2,250. And cultural activities at $2,500. So I would ask for your any discussion and any temporary approval that you might give to these budgets being level funded.
Yay.
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 We don't need to take a vote on the TA, right?
No.
Just keep-
Yay.
Next one, Mr. Hutchinson? Or are we all set?
Well, if there's no discussion on any of them, happy to dig down into some of them if you like, but again, they are all level funded.
Okay. TA across the board?
Yes.
Okay. And then we can move on. Go ahead. There's a question?
Joe, I just wanted to steal a moment just to address Tom. And Tom, if you could just simply email a list of these to me tomorrow so I can be prepared. So I can, right now we're looking at 3 meetings of the Finance Committee to cover all the budgets at this point. We may have to do one more, a 4th meeting, but I'm not sure on that one at this time. So that's what it's kind of looking like from our viewpoint. All right. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Moving on to the vote for the FY23 wages recommended and pay and classification study. Mr. Hutchinson.
Yes, where we left this last time, there was discussion about whether we were going to propose to raise wages substantially or even more substantially. The proposal from the consultant was on the table, which involves a slight bump to a new position for all staff and then a 3.75% increase for FY23 and years going forward as part of the general plan. I had put forth a few amendments to that based on some nuances that were discovered in the process. And I have just a couple of other items to add to that. One is that I'm no longer asking for, oh yes, no, I'm sorry that I had corrected what I had thought earlier. So last week's proposal still stands where I was, where I'd like to be, and again, that's raising the salary line by about 110,000. Raising it by 6% would raise it about 160,000 for this year. I'll also mention that some towns that do use the actual CPI index for setting their COLAs use a 3-year average in order to spread out the impact on the taxpayers. And that was part of my impetus for wanting a steady 3.75% was it's a substantial jump and it will continue in the future. We don't know what's going to happen with inflation. So I was trying to aim for not too big an increase at first and then a steady but substantial addition after that. The only other thing that I have to add is that there may be other adjustments coming in individual budgets. I know of one. I believe the Council on Aging is going to present a budget in which their drivers receive more money. And right now they're ranked very low in the scale. And the Council on Aging director is making an argument that due to their responsibilities, they should be paid at a higher level. So we'll have a chance to address that when that budget comes up towards the end of I'm not sure when that budget is coming up, but whenever that budget does come up. So I think you have enough information now to continue the discussion as to what kind of changes we might make in wages and in wages.
Any question? I do have a question about possible board. Any questions from the board?
Yeah.
Mr. Boyle.
Mr. Chair, yeah. As I pointed out last week, Tom, the cost of living in 2021 was 7%, according to the CPI. Even have a clipping here from the Wall Street Journal. There it is. And is projected, based on the first month of January, to be 7% for 2022. Now, that is not a 3-year average, but it is a 2-year average. And it looks like it's going to continue in that range. I realize that is a stretch probably for us, but I would like to see more than 3.7 granted to the town, non-represented town officials, town employees. So I would like to see, maybe 4.5. I think it's time we recognize the sacrifices our town employees make as unrepresented. They always are the tail wagging the dog. You just get the leftovers, whatever the police have negotiated or the highway have negotiated. And so I think we should treat them fairly, respectfully, and be cognizant of the financial ramifications of their current cost of living, which is for calendar year 2021 was 7%.
Well, I'll just have to add a comment to that. I think we also should reflect and look at the pay and classification report and what that report is telling us to improve those wages based upon market data and based upon the analysis, which is the select board taking a leadership role in asking for that report to be done when Mr. Hutchinson arrived. And thank you for that great detail. Now, from that, there's a significant cost to the town. And I think some of the employee wages are going to be adjusted accordingly. And I think they'll be appreciative of that effort and that direction. When we look at the cost of living increase, we got to kind of look at the overall average, but adding 6% on top of that is a pretty big lift. But what I'm going to ask, the question for Mr. Hutchinson, if you look at that report and the wages, is there a target that we're trying to land on, that 60th percentile, if you will, of that range? Can you kind of walk us through with that 60th percentile and then those steps and or is there more analysis that needs to be completed with our finance committee?
Yes. First, I'd like to extend my previous remarks by saying that those figures that I gave of 110,000 or almost 111 for all of the proposals that I made put together, including a new position, that does not include the results of the collective bargaining agreements. So the actual amount will be substantially more than that. I don't think it'll be that much more, but it will be more than the 111,000. Yes. One of the things that I asked for in the request for proposals for this pay and classification study to be done was consideration of the average or 50th percentile of what towns made, so that we would be right in the middle of what the comparable towns were. And then I also wanted to recognize that from my observations, just informed but unscientific, it seemed as though Dalton employees might be being paid somewhat less than other towns. And so I asked for the consultant to consider a 60th percentile and a 75th percentile. Now, coming down into the final stretch, we did narrow it to the 60th percentile because I thought that the raises were sufficiently substantial to make a real difference and to reflect that we did want to, in fact, be competitive. So we are, by taking these recommendations of the consultant, already positioning Dalton employees higher than the average of the comparable towns. That's how we ended up at the figures that you see.
Great, thank you. Mr. Droshine.
Tom, in looking at this proposal, we at the Finance Committee, of course, haven't seen this yet. We'll be looking at it this coming Wednesday, just to let all of you know. And I do have a quorum. I've gotten emails back. Anyone from the Select Board is more than welcome to come and join the meeting. We are doing an in-person meeting at the Senior Center with I think I'm going to try to do a hybrid meeting. I'm not sure how that's going to work out, but I've done them before and it works out, actually can work out pretty well. We'll have to kind of try to work with that. There's television that over there that we need to get so that we can connect to it and people can see who's on the Zoom meeting. But at any rate, I'd like to know, Tom, and maybe Sandy can help us out with this, is what would the effect of $160,000 be on our tax rate, or on or how would it affect possibly our free cash? Those were the two questions that came to mind when I was reading through this. And again, we're gonna hear about it on this coming Wednesday, but I wanted to attend this meeting tonight so that I could get a little bit of input and a little bit of knowledge about it. Thank you.
Yes, I don't think it would have a terribly much effect on our free cash. We certainly wouldn't. We're now very preliminarily looking at spending the same amount, about $200,000 from free cash to reduce the tax rate that we usually do because of the grant for the dispatchers. In terms of what it would do to the tax rate, I know that $100,000 on a $7 million budget is about $1. So I can imagine that $100,000 on a budget that's almost 3 times as large would be about a third of that. But perhaps Sandra has a better rule of thumb to use for that. So I would say it would be certainly under 50 cents, but 50 cents on the tax rate, a rise of 50 cents is still a very substantial rise.
Bill.
Even if we're closer to 30.
Go ahead, Cindy.
So Bill, that financial spreadsheet that we have helps us determine that kind of information. So right now, that financial spreadsheet has, I think, Tom, right, the 3.75% increase in it. And you just need to, like, on page 3, add 160,000 to it, make it, I'm not sure what it is right now, but that will tell you, it will just calculate all the way through what the tax rate's going to be and what the impact is. So we just need to work that through, because right now we're in the beginning stages of the budget, and until we make those analyses, that's an easy thing to do. Just add it to that salary contingency line.
Right.
Right?
Yes. We'll hopefully we'll have all of our updates set for us for our first budget. We won't be deliberating any budgets on Wednesday. We have, it sounds to me like we may have some reserve fund transfers, and we want to talk about this wage increase. And there was a couple other things that I had on our I have some planning things to do as well, in the hope that maybe we can have some people from the finance committee come and go through these budgets with the select board and maybe reduce some of the pressure on you and Tom explaining budgets to us at our meeting. So that's kind of what I'm attempting to do this year, a little bit of a change. All right, thank you.
So Tom, can I answer just a little bit about the reserve fund transfers?
Please.
We do need some, but I think we cannot have to do that this week because the budgets are good, intact right now, but during our budget process, we definitely would consider with reserve fund transfers. And the other thing I want to talk about is whatever can wait to the May 1st departmental transfers would mean that the reserve fund transfers wouldn't have to occur. Departmental, I know one budget that is going to be able to be used, and it's the same one every year, vocational education. 8 or 9 freshmen decided not to go, so that budget is way up, or way down, I should say. So
good, we have room in that. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so whatever can wait till then, we could wait till then and not have to use the reserve fund.
So tonight's topic for the pay and classification report, Mr. Hutchinson, I know you want to get these numbers in for the budget process, and I know, Bill, you have the meeting on Wednesday. So would it be appropriate to have a vote of or motion to approve the independent finance review on Wednesday? And if there's any, and if they approve it, then it's approved by both boards, both committees. Would that be appropriate?
I just to let you know, I would from the committee chair's viewpoint, it would be greatly appreciated if the select board could tell us what their wishes are, so that we can help and work our way into it and see if it is something that we can present to the voters. I don't think we're going to have a problem presenting it to the voters, but it's that's what we have. That's our piece of the puzzle. But that's some advice from you would be really great. Whatever.
Great. Thank you,
we
Bill.
can all be on the same page. Yes.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question, Joe?
Mr. Bishop.
Yeah, Tom. The average, the percentage that the rate's going to give everybody, along with the 3.75 increase, what would that be? Would that be like around 6% of an average person?
No. Most people are only getting a slight bump up to where the step in the new matrix puts them. No one loses any money. Most people gain a little, and then the bump comes with the step and 2%, step plus 2% or 3.75%. And I'll also mention that one of the reasons there's that structure to it is that then there's a 30% difference between the entry level position and when you're maxed out in the position. So that's a substantial amount to be able to grow within a position.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Boyle. Yep, Mr. Boyle.
Yes, I think we have exhausted the subject. And at this point in time, I'd like to put a motion before the board that the town non-representative employees be granted a 4% annual cost of living raise.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Motion second, discussion.
So this would be 0.25% more than what's being proposed at 3.75.
0.25%, Dan.
Quarter of a percent?
3.75 to 4.
Okay, I'm just clarifying.
Yep.
Mr. Joshine?
Yeah, I have one question. Your motion's for a pay increase, but I thought you were working on the new pay structure. Am I missing something here?
We are, and that's what I'm struggling with. I don't know if we can talk about the COLA increase.
I thought this was scheduled tonight.
No,
Because we
this is
talked
only,
about it last week. We put it off to this week. The
this is,
cost of living increase for the non-represented employees. Are
No,
you
Mr.
telling
Boyle,
me
we
that's
got-
not the case? That's not why
No,
we're
we have-
here?
no, we have the pay and classification report on the agenda. Motion a second. Any further discussion?
Well, sorry, my dog was barking. So this cost of living adjustment, were we going to take this up later anyways?
Yes.
We really need this number to be able to get out to departments so that they can plan their budget. I would suggest that the board does have the power to amend the recommendation from the pay and classification study. But again, I would recommend going with it as something that we do have the numbers for and are ready to move forward with. It would be possible to recalculate the first year using 4%. That's all I can say.
So if Mr. Boyle amends his motion to approve the pay and classification report and amend that 3.75% recommendation you have.
I do move that the board amend my motion to read 4.4% be granted as a cost of living increase to non-represented town employees.
Yeah, and I do think it's important to approve the report as well. That puts the whole job descriptions, classifications, all of that in
Mr.
place.
Chair, Tom, can we vote this first and then vote to apply the study to the?
Procedurally, I would like to recommend that we vote to approve the pay and classification report if there's a motion to do so, and then amend the town manager's recommendation of the 3.75 to a 4%. I believe that would be procedurally correct.
That would be the cleanest, yes.
And so move.
Mr. Chairman, I will withdraw my motion and make a new motion. Can you just withdraw your motion without a vote?
The person who seconded has to agree.
I agree.
Thank you, Bob. I move that we adopt the pay classification study and be applied to the town employees that it affects. And a 4% cost of living increase be granted to the town non-represented employees.
For the coming year?
For the next fiscal year, yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Second.
Motion is second. Further
Joe,
discussion?
I think Sandy wants to say something.
I just want to understand exactly what that means. So right now, the pay and classification study is giving, placing all non-union representatives with a 1.75% increase and a 2% cost of living increase. So John, are you saying in addition to the 1.75% increase, what is the cost of living increase you want to add?
4%.
So it would be 6.75%.
Total package. As Bob said, doesn't the whole thing add up to about 6%?
Well, right now, the package is 1.75% increase for the classification study of all of our positions.
For the step in.
And on top of that, right, and on top of that is a 2% COLA. So.
No, the COLA will be stricken. The COLA will be changed from 2 to 4 by this
So
motion.
in other words, 1.75% plus
Yep.
4% is 5.75%.
As
Is that
stated
what
by
you're-
Mr. Bishop
yes.
earlier, that was our goal to get up or around 6%. And we accomplished this by combining the pay study raise or bump for most employees along with a 4% COLA.
Okay, that's what I was not, I was
Yep.
confused about that, so
Thank you,
For
Sam.
the coming
understand that
fiscal
now.
year.
For fiscal 23.
2023. Yeah.
What was the cost of the 2% cost of living, if someone has that number handy? Is there a dollar amount assigned to that right now?
Again, for the non-represented employees, the total salary cost would be about $110,000. Though, I'm sorry, that does include the new position of transfer station attendant. Without the transfer station attendant, the total cost would be about $60,000 without the represented employees. So if you're bumping that by roughly half again, it would be half again the amount of money. But again, that's only for the non-represented employees.
So what you're going to be voting on is the 1.75 plus 4%, so that would be 5.75. Is that right?
Yes, total package, yes.
Okay.
So I'm all in support of raising compensation, particularly cost of living. Just feel like we had a valid, viable proposal with solid figures, solid numbers associated with these increases. And now, we're being asked to vote on an increase that really hasn't been analyzed as much, although certainly rough math can get us there. I just question if that's, sound for the board to be making decisions that way, or I don't know, I'd like the board members to weigh in.
Yeah, that's where I'm kind of stuck, Dan, as well, is that analysis and the report, so we can see the detail and all the other aspects of that. And we could come back to it, or we can approve the pay and classification with the town manager's recommendations and leave it there. And we're talking about 0.25%. And if I think through what I've seen in the analysis with the pay and classification report and the other, percentage increase, it's a pretty good package for our employees. And I don't want to argue about 0.25%, but I also want to see the analysis and also have our finance committee be able to navigate their end of this situation too.
And again, we're not talking about 0.25% total rise in the proposal. We're talking about a rise from 3.75% to 5.75%.
Yeah, I'm not sure I can support that at the moment without further analysis, but.
Yeah, it's not 0.25%, it's 2%.
Yeah. There's more detail that needs to be, but there's a motion and a second, and any further discussion? So the motion is to approve the pay and classification report and amend to a 4% additional increase, which will impact that proposal from 3.75 to 5.25. Was that 5.25, Tom? 5.75. So with that, roll call vote on that motion.
Joe Diver,
No.
Mark Strout.
Abstain.
Okay. R. Bishop
No.
and John Boyle.
Yes.
Dan Esco.
No.
Okay, motion fails. So on the pay and classification report as it stands, is there a motion to approve that?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion a second. Further discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Joe Diver.
Yes.
Okay, Mark Strout.
Same.
Robert Bishop.
Yes.
John Boyle.
Yes.
Dan Esco.
Yes.
Great. Very good conversation and discussion, an important discussion for sure. Moving to number 13, town manager update, Mr. Hutchinson.
Yes, in committee and board news, I'm moving toward hiring our old recycling educator, Mary Stucklin, on a very part-time basis to continue her work around recycling in the transfer station till the end of the year. This will cover some of the items Jane has been working on, including moving forward with the RFP. The Beautification Commission has received artwork proposed for the traffic control box in front of Town Hall, showing 3 cavorting foxes with party balloons, very festive and colorful, while using nature as the main image. Unfortunately, we found out today that Mass DOT plans to, the utility plans to change out that box relatively soon. So that conversation is happening in the Cultural Council now. The Planning Board Committee on Accessory Dwelling Units, or ADUs, has presented a draft bylaw to the Planning Board and will be looking for resident input, especially at a public hearing, but also through less formal channels. We'll have the draft on the town website for review and comment soon. In departmental news, we continue to have a small number of COVID cases among town employees. Thankfully, we have so far been able to work around the absences and no one has been seriously ill. No one's been hospitalized. I've been working very closely with the town planner on upcoming grant opportunities, especially with the Municipal Vulnerability Program and the new One Stop Grant Program, focusing on Orchard Street drainage and Walker Brook issues. I'd like to express thanks to the highway superintendent for assisting the town of Hinsdale's highway department recently. We got a letter of thanks from that department. At one point, they had, due to staff being sick due to COVID. Also, as a highway update, we did look at Norwich Avenue as requested at the last meeting. And according to a prioritized list of roads that we have, it is now rated a lower priority than about 25 other roads at this point. We are looking at a program called Street Scan for a new objective view. This would go through and look at all of the roads in town, and they would independently assess their condition so that we would have something very firm to base our work on. Congratulations to Town Planner Grant McGregor and Administrative Assistant Alyssa Machino for completing their first 6 months in Dalton. Both have proven to be exemplary employees and have been instrumental to the smooth workings of the town. The biggest news is that the interim final rule for the American Rescue Plan Act, or known as ARPA, was published and allows all of Dalton's funds to be spent on revenue replacement or almost any governmental use. I had a call with Sandra and our auditor today to clarify eligibility and reporting details. And since we want as much spending to come under this rule as possible, I'll have an agenda item for your next meeting reapproving the mini excavator for the highway department and possibly the repeater for the police department as well. Then the vote of the board will have come after the interim final rule. We may or may not be able to do the same for some other items, depending on the state. The Gulf Road sale documents were recorded today at the Register through. So that project has been completed, at least on our end. That's my report.
Awesome. Thank you, Tom. And is there like, there's probably gonna be some ceremony or digging the dirt or whatever for that house or something else, so let us know. But thank you, Alyssa, for coordinating all that documentation, sign off on that process for sure. With that, any questions for our town manager?
Yes, this is related to future agenda items as well, but pertains to ADU accessory dwelling unit bylaw that was recommended on boards and to a public hearing. So I just wanted to see if that was going to be on the select board's agenda for our next meeting.
Happy to put it on.
I imagine the planning board would appreciate some feedback from town boards on the proposed bylaw. So if there's a chance to get that, the language of the bylaw as part of the meeting packet, that would be much appreciated.
Happy to do that. Thank you. And I'd like to thank the planning board and they've done a lot of work in a very short period of time. They're on a very tight timeline. And I think it has the possibility to do a lot of good for Dalton.
Tom, did you want me to pull up the picture of the foxes for the box? I have it available if anybody.
Sure. Again, this is just very recently we found out that it's
Hearing none, future agenda items. Okay, hearing none. Any items not anticipated 48 hours before the meeting?
I have nothing.
Hearing none. Okay. And then remarks of the select board.
Joe, I have a couple.
Mr. Stroud.
Tom, I'd like to submit Ken Pease for the Memorial Day Committee, 82 North Street, Apartment 8. He's interested in getting on that, and I know it's in our announcements. And then also, I sent an email probably about a month ago to you, Bill, about crosswalks, flashing lights on South Street in the area of Grange Hall and down by Greenridge. I don't know if you got that email. I didn't hear back, so I wasn't sure if it went through.
Yes, I apparently didn't get any, or I don't recall a response. I will look into that again.
Oh, I sent it to Bill.
Oh, you sent it to Bill. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Oh, for the traffic commission.
Yes, sir.
I think
if we didn't get an opportunity to work on it with our last traffic commission meeting, we will be looking at it the next one, which I think is in 2 weeks. I think we'll have it.
Bill, if you can sit forward a little bit, we can't really hear you.
Sorry about that. I can't remember. I think we are having I have to look at it to be sure, but I think our next meeting is either the 2nd or the 9th of February. I have to go look.
Okay.
We do have regularly scheduled meetings. The last meeting, that was the only thing on the agenda, so I didn't, it was going to be a kind of a big issue to bring that they try to bring everyone together for that. And I was struggling to get a as well.
Yeah, and
Thank you.
if,
We'll address it on the next meeting.
if you can send in the name, I think you had someone you wanted on the Memorial Day Committee,
Yes, I'll
is that
send you,
right?
I'll send
If
you
you
an
can
email,
send,
Tom.
thank you. And please copy Alyssa.
I just want to send my thanks to our highway department for the recent snowstorm and the great work that they did and getting the cars off the streets, et cetera. So great job across the board there. And just a reminder for the board to check your email. Alyssa has forwarded an invitation for the board to attend the ribbon cutting ceremony for the new high school, which will be Wednesday, January 26th. Alyssa, I think it's 10 a.m., if I have the time correct. And a lot of folks from the state are coming out as well. And there's a nice invitation in the in your inbox. And then also, of course, refreshments after the ribbon cutting ceremony. So it'll be exciting time to get that, have that celebration. That's all I had. Anything else from other board members? Hearing none, we'll move to announcements. Dalton Police Department is reminding the citizens of Dalton of the winter parking ban. Yep, I guess. Okay. A comment here. Alyssa, can you see that comment from Brittany Polito?
Yes.
Dalton Police Department is
Okay.
reminding the citizens of Dalton of the winter parking ban, which is in effect from November 15th, 2020 streets between 1 a.m. and 6 a.m. Following committees have vacancies and are looking for volunteers. The Dalton Cable Advisory Committee, Dalton Development Industrial Commission, Dalton Green Committee, the Finance Committee, Memorial Day Committee, Stormwater Management Commission, and the Waste Management and Recycle Committee. If interested, please reach out to Alyssa Machino at the Town Manager's Office by calling 684-6111, extension 202, or email in amachino@dalton-mass.gov. More information can also be found on the town website, dalton-mass.gov or ma.gov. Next meeting is scheduled to take place on Monday, February 7th at 7 p.m. in-person location or virtual to be determined. And with that, if I could have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion a second. Roll call vote. Brittany?
Joe Diver,
Yes.
Mark Strout,
Yes.
Robert Bishop.
Yep.
John Boyle,
Yes.
Dan Esco.
Yes.
Great. With that, thank you everybody for a great meeting and good night, Dalton. Thank you, everybody.